This second video in the series, Colours of Inclusion, is for people who are involved in supported employment. The practice of supported employment has evolved over time and many different approaches have been tried, as Roy Wilson explains.
I can recall exploring a lot of processes along the way, working variously as manager of a sheltered workshop many years ago, exploring things like enclaves, work teams, co-ops, all of them regarded as innovative at the time. But as a personal philosophy, I found them always slightly lacking and also perhaps not as productive and never producing the results that we wanted. In fact, the only thing that ever seemed to work was take away any of that sort of specialist sort of systems that you devised and working towards what everyone else regards as their goal in life, which is a place in the community, and that involves work, real pay, no half measures. And so in the end, you kind of think, well, if you're going to focus your energy and what is always a limited resource, then you go towards the ultimate goal, which is what everybody else wants, a real job.
And that means a real job for everyone, including those with significant barriers to employment. Here's a story from Tauranga, introduced by Robin Hanna.
One of the real successes that we have around assisting people with employment in the community is Role Lead Baker, who I'm part of a support team. He has a job in which is sort of like a customer services sort of quality control job for a company called Vital Foods. 65. Rolly has a communication book that allows him to communicate with his world. We will ask him through numbers 1 to 9 which line he wishes to choose from. So we'd go 1, 2, 3, 4 through to 9. And if Rolly chose 1, then he would open his mouth yes for 1. Then we'd ask him and go through 1 to 9 again, and that goes across the column that he wishes to talk from.
I assist Rolly out to the supermarkets that he deals with.
1, 2. 1, 1, 2. Back 1, 2. Close. Bottle of wine. How much money have you got? Got a winning lotto ticket? Do you want to sit up at all?
So where are we off to now?
We're off to Countdown Supermarket today, Rolly, the one at Greeton. So Rolly, when you became the member of the racing club, they sent that form out. There's races in the next 2 weeks. You wanting to go? Of course, yeah. You going to invite Kevin over? What about your brother? I think Malcolm's wanting to know when the next races are over so he can come in. Straight past the wine today. We can't even afford a can of beer. No, we can't even afford the can. Let's go and see where they've got it now. So they're trying to keep up with all the demand. It's flying out too fast. Oh, that's good. Leanne will be pleased to know that. We'll have to make a note of that, Rolly.
I assist Rolly by doing the writing for him. He has a page in his communication book. I translate the communication. He tells me what he wishes to say and I read off his communication book.
Okay, Rolly has just checked all the stock. He's looked at the condition of it, he's looked at the price that they've got marked on it, and he's looked to see that the shelves are well stocked, that the product's not looking grotty, it's visible to people, it's easily found. He's very pleased with what he's found today. The supermarket's usually very good. And now he's just off to find the freezer manager and just ask him a few questions.
1, 2, 3. Is the product selling well?
Yeah, I understand that it's selling really well at the moment.
The company's running an ad campaign. Has there been an increase in people asking for the product?
In the last couple of weeks there's been a big demand for it.
Have you had any problems you getting delivery of stock?
No, there's been no problems. Comes in every day. Yeah, when we order it, it arrives the next day.
Do you have any comments you'd like to pass on to the sales manager at Kiwi Crush about the product at all?
Yeah, it's just that it's going really well, and keep up the good work, really. Yeah.
Job 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Thanks very much for your time, and Rolly will be back in about 4 weeks just to check up and make sure things are going fine.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, and I'll see you next time, eh? Cheers.
7, 8, 9. You'd like to buy something now? Some wine. And no, it's not my shout. Do you reckon you can pawn Michael into paying for half of it? Oh, you reckon you can? You're a con artist. I come to you. All right. He likes blonde. Oh, really? I'm flattered. Definitely a blonde. And he'll tick off on his form that he's been to that supermarket, the date he's gone, and he'll sit back and wait to get paid. And he does 2 a week, every week. You still sharing, Rolly? He brought you a cask of white wine. Yes, you have a wine? Makes you popular now. Let's say something. Blue, black. How many have you got left? How much money? Oh, you want money off Michael?
Being in paid employment gives him a status, it makes him, he is not just someone who sits at home and watches TV.
This video explores 6 key aspects of supported employment.
Well, a lot of people come to us really uncertain about what sort of work they want because it's never really been presented to them as an option. So it's our job to, expose people to a range of choices and to start talking about what their skills are, because that very much determines what sort of workplaces we might choose to focus on with that person. So it's very much parallel to the community participation process in that we go through a planning phase where we assist the person to identify, as I say, what their skills are, what their interests are, what sort of places they might like to work in, what sort of jobs they might have heard about that they think sound interesting. And for some people who have had very little work history and who really aren't sure, we might involve them in 1 or 2 work experience opportunities, just time limited, so that they can get an idea of what it's really like out there working and what different workplaces feel like.
In the form of helping Daniel to choose a path that suited Daniel, we went out one day and went round about employers and gave him an insight to what was going on round about the place, because he was pretty unsure on what he wanted to do until one day we went into a place called Amstore, who made CD discs in Miramar, and Daniel, being an outward kind of guy, decided that he would like to give that job a go, and it was a small assembly.
There was a guy crouched down on the ground, sitting on the floor, and he was feeding sheets of paper into a paper shredder. And Jeremy's not a particularly big sort of guy or anything like that, so he wasn't a great deal, he sort of blended in really with this paper shredder machine, and we talked about what it is that he might want to do and for work, and what sort of environment that he would like to work in and what sort of people he would like to work with. We knew some things about Jeremy, and that was that he needed an environment that had a consistency of staff or consistency of people, because it's difficult at times for people to understand Jeremy when he speaks, and if people were to keep changing and coming and going through that environment, it would be very difficult for them to build relationships and him to build relationships with them. Ideally, it would be a job that had a consistent sort of tasks or tasks that would be that wouldn't change from minute to minute to minute. So Jeremy could get used to doing those things, and that he could master the skills as he went along. So we started hunting really, and we didn't invest a whole lot of time in pre-vocational training or work experiences or courses or anything like that, because Jeremy had spent his whole life really doing those sorts of things.
One of the things that is really important to us when people come to us as a job seeker is that they have thought about not just the rights in terms of having the right to access paid employment and to get out there and have a job like everyone else, which to us is a given, but also that they've thought about the responsibilities of being an employee, that it does mean that you have to listen to your boss. It does mean that you have to get up every day and go to work, even if it's raining or you're tired. Essentially what we do in terms of creating job opportunities is around building relationships with prospective employers.
Just concentrate on building a rapport. Hey, if I've got to go into a coffee shop and have a coffee twice a week in the shop to get to know who runs the shop, because I've got someone in my mind who could go in there and clean the tables, and then that's what I'm going to do.
And his workshop was you'd go in there and you couldn't even see the floor. It was a real shambles in there. And I went in there one day and told him that I had somebody that could come in and tidy up the floor so that he could see that it was actually a concrete floor, and put things away and tidy the place up and look after the smoker room and do these smokers for them. And so we put Gavin in there for a week's work experience. And Gavin is such a character that they really enjoyed his company as well as what he did. So they employed him, and he was employed there for about 7 years, right up until the business was sold.
You got a whole range of things, and you don't know what you're going to try, you know, just give it a go. But one of the main things with this job is you've got to be out there. You can't sit behind a desk, you can't make phone calls all the time.
So we created this pamphlet, and Jeremy went and jumped on a scooter and he drove around suburbs and places that were close to him and put it in people's letterboxes and took it to businesses, which was fantastic. And what actually happened was that a guy from a radio station, a local radio station, saw him do this, and he got the pamphlet and was just intrigued and fascinated. So he rung Jeremy up and wanted to talk about this on the radio. One of the local businesses heard that program and invited Jeremy to come and sort of have a work trial there.
Now I'm supporting a young woman, beautiful young woman in Auckland, who has a significant disability, probably needs somebody alongside her all the time, just to make sure that her vulnerabilities are protected, who's very, very creative, can assemble things beautifully, has a good eye for shape and form. What we're trying to build up for her is you know how they sell baskets in florists and in supermarkets and body shop, just a little business that she makes up the baskets because she's spectacular at it. And you don't need to know much about a person to say, how could this be turned into real work?
It was a small company, young company. They were keen to get someone in there. They needed someone in there, and that wage subsidy that I could get through Department of Work and Income made a huge difference.
There was a number of employers in the Tauranga area that were eligible to apply for mainstream supported employment, and we would target them specifically.
Even though we were comfortable employing them in their own right, and we certainly pay at least the minimum award, there are subsidies that employers can get, and we do get some support from Workbridge, and hey, it really is appreciated, but you know, that's an aside. You know, it goes back to our belief that these guys are part of our community, and you know, we're going to support them in their own right because of that. But yeah, the subsidies is nice to get.
When you go into the retail industry, what I say to the managers there is it makes good business sense to employ people with disabilities.
We even get comments back to us here at New World that customers shop at our shop because we give people that have got learning disabilities some work.
And we created a role that absolutely needed to be done within that work environment and was one of those types of jobs that no one really got time to ever get around to doing.
Jeremy's going through old files from our basement. He looks for them on the computer, brings it up, sees if they've got another visit or another file, and then he'll stamp it. Anything that doesn't have a stamp will be destroyed. It's a very worthwhile job.
My experience is that the greater challenges and the greater levels of support people need, the greater levels of commitment are needed by the people that will support them. To not give up, to not bail out when things get difficult, or to not say we've tried 5 things or 10 things or 50 things, that's all we can do. You know, we're going to try one more time, we're going to try one more time, and keep trying until it happens, because it will happen. And it took a year from the day that I first met him sitting beside the paper shredder to the day when we first went to the workplace to meet the staff at the Tauranga Hospital.
To go through the exercise of interviewing can be scary, can be unsettling. They've never done it before, and they're unsure of what questions to ask. They're unsure of what answers to give. They're unsure of what posture to take. So to do the mock-up interview in that light is absolutely crucial. And that's what we've done with Daniel. We kept it low-key. It probably taken us 3-4 goes doing the mock-up interview. But at the end of that time, Daniel was more comfortable in an interview situation. When it came to the actual interview, you could see that the work that I had done with Daniel in these mock-up situations came to the forefront, and it made a huge difference. He was more confident. He had 2 buses to catch. We would ensure that we gave him full support. We would go with him on the bus. We would ensure that he would show this particular instruction to the driver. We wouldn't be taking this person's role. We were only there in assistance. And so once he got on the bus, we were sitting down. We would ensure that when the bus stop came along, that he got up and he pressed the button to make sure that the bus driver was going to stop, and we were with this person all the time. Now, that takes quite a while for someone to gain the confidence to be able to do that on their own. But you do it, and you keep up that support all the time. But once again, the weaning process is going to start straight away, and you're weaning back all the time until eventually they're doing it, just naturally doing it.
Some people, when you'd go job coaching them, they pick the job up quite easily. Others wouldn't pick it up so easily, and then you had others that would pick the job up, but they didn't have confidence of being around people. So it was just a matter of sort of being there with them and trying to get them to interact with the other staff members. And in a lot of cases, I'd know some of the staff members, and by me talking to them and then bringing Ben in onto or the person and on the conversation, and they soon become comfortable with the people around them. And Justin I worked with Justin for about 5 days. it was traffic was his biggest thing. The trolleys getting from A to B was no problems at all. He was just too keen, and he'd get across the road and I could see him getting run over. So I worked with him for about 5 days to get it into him, where to take the trolleys and how to look out for traffic. Yeah, and Justin became a very good man at the job.
Visual aids are often used, as Siona Tulia explains.
Instead of task lists with words, obviously if you don't understand or read words, but they can understand pictures. So what we use, what we call pictorial prompts. We have a few here. Got this one here of a client of mine, Richard, who was working at KFC. This is what we used at the very beginning to help him out because he didn't understand words. So the best way to do it was to get pictures there. And then you've got the windows, window cleaner, spray onto the windows and wipe it down. The consultant can draw them, or obviously with technology you can access pictures from the internet and just bonk them on a document.
We did up some for one in Burger King, just photos of the sequence of how he was to work. Most of the ones at New World, because they have lockers, couldn't identify their locker, so I put a picture. I got them to select the picture and I put the picture, we ended up with pictures of them, that's what it was. You know, you can't start and say, well, I'll job coach this person for a week and then back out. It's just something, you know that the time has come that you can start backing off and you keep the staff informed that, well, I'm going to be showing up less and less and less. And then righto, from now on, it's up to you guys. If you have any problems, ring me up.
Support employment, I think, has changed over the years with my involvement with it. And when I first was involved in support employment, there were positions called job coaches, and the job coach would go to a workplace and they would take over really from the staff of the workplace, and they would train the person into their role. They would provide all the support the person needed. If there was a problem or there was an issue with that person in their workplace, they would solve it for the employer. So people's roles were created around the fact that the staff and the people of that workplace didn't have to do anything. All they had to do was be nice people and let someone with a disability come and work in their workplace. And I think one of the significant changes that Jeremy's example highlights is that for it to be successful, the staff people have to be intricately involved in all aspects of the role. And they'll be sort of thought of as natural supports, or things that we would just take as commonplace in our workplaces today. That if we have a problem, we go to one of the people that we work with and say, we've got this issue, can you help me out with this?
Good morning. Morning. How are you? Good, thanks.
I'd like another table if you wouldn't mind putting here.
Joy's employer, Anne Broadbridge, learned how best to organise her tasks.
Like if I gave her chores to do, I gave them to her consistently the same way. Like if she was going to go upstairs first, she'd go upstairs, do the tea, come down, do the cafe bar, go back upstairs. I couldn't say go and do the cafe bar first because it would break that routine. And we actually found as long as we didn't break her routine and made her do things consistently all the time, she was fine.
It's not just about whether people can do their job or not, it's whether they get on with their co-workers and people get on with them.
So what we try and do is look at the workplace and look at what typically happens in that workplace. And if people give each other a bit of a hard time and a bit of ribbing, then we support the person on how to receive that and maybe also how to participate in it. And just simple things like where you sit at smoko time so that you can participate in the conversation, having a game of pool with the guys if that's what they do at smoko time. It's very much focused on what happens in that workplace and supporting the person to be involved in that and to whatever degree they feel comfortable.
Ongoing support is an interesting concept, really. And for Jeremy, it's been that naturally nearly all of his support will come from his co-workers and the people that he works with. But at times, him and I will discuss, or I'll go and have lunch with him, say, or we'll catch up after work and have a cup of coffee, or we'll have a beer on the weekend, or something like that, you know, and we'll just talk about work or any issues that he's facing in a way that doesn't interfere with what's going on with work and his relationships from work. But it's different for everyone, and some people need more support and some people need less support, and there's not one standard sort of rule.
We're a fairly transient workforce in New Zealand. It's part of our makeup. That's got to be extended to all people, including those clients we have, some of whom have reasonably profound disabilities. Where they start isn't necessarily where they're going to be in a year's time, 2 years' time, 5 years' time. So that part of the process is long-haul stuff. We're there for an extended duration.
If anyone's had enough of what they're doing, you know, they're no different to you and I at the end of the day. They've had enough. So we have a talk about it. Well, why have you had enough? What's wrong with the job? And sometimes they're just fed up with doing what they're doing, and they want to change. So we go through the process and they finish the job. I always make them come with me. I go with them and make them hand their notice in and talk to the employer and tell the employer why, and then find them another job. And it's never been any problems. We've finished one job and started another job.
And I could tell you a myriad of stories. The man who makes mud bricks, very, very significantly intellectually disabled, virtually no short-term memory, loved the outdoors, loved being, making things with his hands, loved the texture of the earth. We thought, what could this man do? Instead of advertising for a carer, because it had to be very repetitive work, he couldn't remember things. Instead of advertising for a carer for that man, we advertised for a person interested in learning about and teaching the manufacture of mud bricks. Got a guy. They've been running a business for 7 years, making mud bricks for housing. Fantastic little business, small, niche. He's now got his own home. He has somebody living with him in his own home who's not paid to be there. And instead of having a caregiver who comes in and looks after him, he's got a business partner.